Welcome back to Retro Racer. It's Friday the 12th of June. So I'll take the camera down off the tripod and I'll show you what I've been doing to the air conditioner and power steering mounts. This one here is the air conditioner mounting casting, and just down here I've got the power steering one. I'll show you the power steering one especially. So here's the power steering mounting boss, and I'm quite happy the way that cleaned up. At the moment it has a protective coating on it, so it's gone a bit dull. You'll see how I'll clean these up and give them a matte clear coat. But on going back to the mechanical side of things, these have a bush in them that looks very much like this. It appears to be, I believe it's a synthetic. I don't think it's an actual rubber. I think it's a polyurethane. I might be wrong. And at first, this is one out of on the top of the motor there, of the air conditioning mounting boss. And I thought, and some of the websites will leave you to believe that these are the same bush, but they're not. There's 3mm difference in the OD of the main shank. 3mm difference between that boss there and of the similar 4 on the air conditioning mounting boss. So just keep an eye out for that one if ever you're doing it. Make sure you get the right one. This one's about 21mm internal diameter, which is about 13/16 from memory, and that one up there is just over 24mm from memory, and which is the best part of an inch. So I've only just shown you this one because the originals from this, that's all that's left. And I don't want to. I know a lot of other cars don't bother with these. BMW would have done this because they're a refined vehicle and extremely smooth vehicle in their day, but also sporty at the same time. And that's just the lengths they went to refine their cars back then. So you can see that it's got a shoulder, and if you look at the boss here, you can see that shoulder as well, which is about 29mm across. Don't ask me to convert that one at the moment without looking at my chart. Now, to buy these bushes and get them here to Thailand basically doubles the price of what you guys are paying, and I'm on a fairly tight budget with this car. I have no problem spending money on the braking system, which I already have, tyres and wheels, and any new clutch and things like that. But when it comes to little things like that, if I can source them locally and save a bundle of money, I'll do it. Admittedly, I haven't approached BMW here in Chiang Mai in Thailand to see if it's available as a spare part. I just need to use my time fairly wisely. I don't want to take half a day to drive into BMW to say no have. Just that night I researched materials, and I found this was advertised to be rubber, but I believe it's about an 80 Shaw or 100 Shaw polyurethane. It's actually, I'm showing you the wrong one. That's what it is. It's advertised as 26mm long, 20mm diameter, and a 10mm hole. It's actually 23mm long, but that's fine, it works. And then I purchased these washers, 25mm long. I'm getting the 26 from these washers that I purchased, which appear to be the same material, 20 by 26 by 2. And I've ordered 4. I purchased 4 of those. Now, what the idea is, and that's just come off. I'll just see if I can manipulate that back on. I put 2 of those on, and I also ordered some seamless tube. It appears to be like a bright sort of material. And it is getting some slight rust stains, but some of that is also just residue. I just used some rubber grease to do a trial fit, so I can make these 23mm or 24mm long crush tubes that go inside. I've also ordered some Loctite 480, which is a rubberized flexible super glue, which I've used in the past. It's extraordinary stuff. And what I'll be doing with that is those two rubber flat O-rings, I suppose technically they should be called, will be glued together because they're not quite wide enough to take up this area in here. And all that does, that's not load bearing out there. That's the main shank of the bush is the load bearing part. That just provides insulation on the side where the steel U-shaped mount of the power steering pump goes on. So I'll just glue those together. These will not be able to come off. So I'm not even going to... I probably could put a drop of that same stuff on there, but I just want to try and keep these together so the outer one doesn't peel off with any shear loadings. But there's no real shear loading. It's all fairly going to be very snug in there, and there's a individual crush tube that goes in the middle as a spacer of these two bushes. But just with the material I've got, I did some calculations. I have to take about 2 millimetre off this for it all to work, just because my system is different, or perhaps this was botched up at some time. Who knows? After 41 years. So now this is 12 millimetre diameter OD and 9 millimetre ID. An 8 millimetre or 5/16 bolt goes through it. So by forcing this on there, it actually expands this out to about 21.3 millimetre, whereas that bore of the Boss is 21 millimetre. So I'm getting about a 0.3 millimetre crush, which I think is about ideal. I don't want it that rock solid that it will break this. And I see a lot of cases where, for whatever reason, these have broken online. So that's what I'll be doing there to make these up. I just thought I'd share that with you. I can't remember the cost. It's quite low. In US dollars, these are about $1 each. And I can't remember honestly about these, about the same or possibly double. Whereas the bushes online, I'll do some screenshots and put them all in when I edit all this up. So that's... I've only just ordered the rubber glue this morning, the rubberized super glue this morning. I thought that I had packed the tube that I had in Australia and brought it with me, but I went through that box and it wasn't in there. So for whatever reason, I chose not to pack it at the time, or, knowing me, put it in a different box. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just spin you around and take you to this box of parts that arrived a couple of days ago. And in here we have the I'll think of it in a minute. We've got the centre bearing for the drive shaft, and we've got a water pump. I'm going to put a new water pump on it whilst it's out. And I think this one is the coupling for the steering shaft. The rubber coupling. But this one I noticed I bought this as a package online and got discounts for doing so, but I just noticed that it goes E30, M20, M40, M50 motors, whereas I have the M10, and none of the information I've been able to find online so far tells me if this is the same on a M10 setup. So the next job, or the first job I'm actually going to do, the physical job this morning, is hop under the car, take the shields off under the drive shaft and take the drive or prop shaft or tail shaft out, depending which country you're in, and have a look at what size that needs to be, because I only have a limited window of where I can return these parts without any hassle. It's just a simple click of a button. So you can join me whilst I do that. Quickly going back to this air conditioning boss, these were also loose and the air conditioning was slopping around a little bit. But what I found was, and I don't know if it's an error or if it's just, you know, the way these were put together. They were put together with a small washer. You can see the indentation in them of where the small washer was. So the way this assembles, it wasn't providing any compression on this bush. You can see some of it where it did for a while, for God knows how many years. So what I did is I just got some large 5/16 stainless steel washers, and that actually compresses the bush into that boss. And there's 4 of them because you've got a fair bit of load with the air conditioner hanging off there. And I found that I was able, just bench tested it all, I was able to adjust these down. These are lock nuts, so you can adjust them to wherever you want, and to get a suitable amount of compression just to firm up that mount again so it wasn't physically sloppy. So I'll be reusing these original ones for now. What I might do is investigate some similar size material as I did there, or suitable size materials to make some of these up as well, in a future date once the car's been up and running for a while. It's on the driver's side, this one here, and should be reasonably easy to get to from underneath. My car's a right-hand drive here in Thailand. So as I said, with budgetary reasons, I do try and make some things myself. Whereas instead of spending a couple $100 on getting the suitable bushes here, I can do it myself faster, and a hell of a lot cheaper. Because back behind over our regular car is the red BMW coupe. It's my next project after this one. A car meet that I want to get to on the 26th of July, so I want to keep things moving as much as possible. Plus we're doing massive renovations. We're almost completed on the other side of the house there, our kitchen and entertainment areas, and also we have travel plans, so I've just got to be careful about how I go about spending money, seeing that we've retired early to Thailand for now. Okay, well I got the drive shaft out, or prop shaft. In Australia we call it a tail shaft, and So forgive me if I refer to that without thinking as a tail shaft. Now, thankfully, somebody has put some reference marks to try and keep the shaft in phase, the two-piece shaft. But I did notice that at certain speeds we had a vibration up around the 100km/h mark. So when we bought the car in Bangkok and drove it the 450 or 500 kilometres home, or what, it might be more than that actually, might be closer to 800 or 900, driving it home. So we just drove home at 80km/h. That seemed to be the sweet spot. So anyway, there's a couple of things that I've noticed is when I was rotating the shaft in the car to be able to get at these bolts, one of which was partially seized, and I started to round it off, trying to get it off, you would have seen me use my little budget induction heater that I purchased off AliExpress. And it's only about the third time I used it, and from memory it has a 3 or a 3.5 minute duty cycle. And then after that it takes quite some time to cool off, to reset, if you run it right up until cut out. But it's good that it protects itself, at least anyway. So getting back to this, so thankfully that worked extremely well. I couldn't get a ring spanner to sit in there properly, and I absolutely couldn't get a socket in there at all. So unfortunately I had to apply big pressure on an open end spanner, which is not ideal, as you know. But anyway, it worked and I got it off. So that nut will be getting replaced. Now, a couple of things I hadn't noticed. I've been working on the car for about 8 or 9 months now, doing all the rust repairs, and I hadn't noticed. I'd moved the tail shaft a few times, but this is as far up as it wants to go. You watch this. If I try and lift it, it actually lifts. I can force it past. It's like a massive detent in the uni joint or universal joint. It could be that these things were never greased, and that that some moisture got in there from the flooding, or it's just a bad joint. So that will have to get replaced. And I think it's a similar problem. I don't know if I can touch that yet. There's still a fair bit of heat in it, but that's fairly tight and a little bit notchy as well. Also has a grease nipple or a zerk, as you guys in the US say. So I'll have to replace those two whilst it's apart. But I pulled it apart to do this. And as I said earlier in the video, I need to get this off to make sure I've got the right size for this. So I can get that attended to before the returns window closes on this mail order. That's old-fashioned. Lazada online shop. Lazada, once again, in Thailand is pretty much like Amazon in the US. It's amazing what you can get on there. So the other thing I noticed though, if we look down the end there and get that universal joint sitting square, and then we come to this one, it's on the piss. It's not. Now, I don't know if that's critical. I thought it was. I know tail shafts and prop shafts have to be in phase so you don't lose their balance. I'm going to have to do some research because this is a splined arrangement. I reckon that it might be 1 or 2 splines out. And the good thing about doing a video log of this is that if I do mess around with it, I can always come back to it. But I also noticed, and this centre bearing with this binding universal joint here, this centre bearing would have copped a flogging. It looks okay, but I noticed some mechanical slop in it, not a rubber slop, like a mechanical slop. So there's something going on inside. Maybe that bearing had to work so hard to make up for the lack of movement in this it'll come to me in a moment, in this universal joint, that it's started to wear out that bearing, or it's possibly spinning. We'll soon see on the shaft. So thankfully, as I said, we've got some reference there, and and I've got this video log to refer back to. So the vibration could either be happening for two reasons in my mind. One, that these joints are out of phase, a spline or two. Let's go back there again and then look at this one. See, she's leaning over to about 11 o'clock and that one's at 12 o'clock. And or the binding universal joints. The binding universal joints certainly, when they're locked up that solid binding so much, they could certainly be causing a driveline vibration. So anyway, I'll split that and then we can measure up this and see if it matches the spare that I have over there. So I've just put the shaft very lightly into the vise, and don't worry, I'm not about to try and put the shears through it. I'm just using that as a resting spot as well. Thankfully, I invested in a decent quality shifter or adjustable spanner, 18-inch 450mm, a couple of years before I retired in Australia, and that came with me, and I'm really glad I did. It looks though somebody's used a pair of Stilsons or a pipe wrench on here at some time. I've already cracked it. It moved, so that's going to undo okay. I forgot to mention the reason for the order of the videos being out is that I have this new pilot bush or bearing and seal assembly coming, and then also this bearing here is in the flywheel, I can't remember what it's called now, the input shaft pilot bearing, I think is what they refer to it as. I want to replace that too whilst it's apart. I don't have an internal bearing puller at the moment. The kits are very cheap here. You know, I can try the hydraulic method to get that out, or the moistened paper or moistened bread method to try and get it out. Or you know, the hydraulic method, as I said, with grease. I'm not too sure if it will work on this little guy here, and I'm not too sure if I have the right size shaft to do it either. But those little expandable collet pullers would probably get it out, or I could butcher the bearing apart and then put a little bead of weld inside the outer race for it to shrink back, and then it will come out easily. Anyway, that's what we'll get to shortly. So I just need to know, one, what parts I need to order if I do need to order the bearing puller, and then obviously order that pilot bearing for there as well, just whilst I'm waiting on that rubber glue to finish making that bush. And then, as I said earlier, I'll swap back over to block painting and the matte clear coats on. I'm having to re-record this. I seem to have deleted the original video to put in the mechanical video. This is the universal joint that I took out, the one that was seized at the centre joint and near the centre bearing. And have a look at these. I'll try and hold the camera steady. I've got the caffeine shakes at the moment. Look at the grooves worn in. And it was actually the grease nipple end, or grease circ end, but it probably never was greased. And that was acting like a massive detent And I noticed when I carefully pulled the cap off that one roller had actually dislodged and was mangled. So it must have dislodged and allowed a bit of a slot for it to kind of work. I'm surprised that there wasn't more vibration and noise to go with this. But anyway, because it's a couple days later after doing this, the replacements have arrived. I found these on Lazada, which is like the Thai equivalent of Amazon or something like that. And this particular shop had, they're a budget low-level joint. They'll do for 105 horsepower. This particular shop had a really comprehensive chart that let me measure the cap or cup size, diameter, the width across there, and it also let me measure the grooves, outer to outer and inner to inner. That was all on the chart for me to confirm that I was indeed getting the right one. Most of the charts, most of the AI web searches I did say that this should be 24 mil OD, but mine are 25. So this shaft may have been custom built here in Thailand, perhaps, or maybe the Thailand version was different. So from a quick look, I couldn't see any reference online to them being a 25 mil, but it is what it is. The other thing I'm going to do is these ports on the downpipe have been both welded inside and out, and the weld wasn't dressed back. Let's see if I can turn the light on so you can get a better idea of what I'm on about. And on this one in particular, it goes back to about 33.5 millimetre. And on this one, it's not too bad, but the weld's still pretty proud there, and there's some pretty big dags in there as well. I don't have a proper die grinder anymore. I should have hung on to it, brought it with me, but I do have some sanding drums that can go on a drill and hand files. So I'll probably better get on with that because the day's getting on and I haven't achieved much so far. As you would have seen, I tried with the drum sanding attachment on the drills, which was useless. I've got four sanding drums that would fit in there on that arbor, but I doubt whether they would get me to where I want to be, and it would probably take all day, even if they did last. So as I was putting that kit away, I noticed my little mini belt sander. So I just grabbed that, and it worked like a charm. The only thing is we've just had a power failure as there's a storm coming through, but thankfully the power failures don't last very long here. I just want to give that a little bit more of a dressing there. Got to be wary that I don't want to take material off the pipe. Just want to get rid of the welds and help flow it in. So far I've taken them from about 34.5 to 35 mil right out to about 36, 37.5. So if I can, when the power comes on, if I can just dress this little area in here, that'll be fantastic, and I'm sure it will help it breathe a little better. Long term, I will actually see if I can get another flange from somewhere, or draw one up and get it laser cut, and then make my own headers out of slightly larger stainless, because this one, wherever there's a bend, see if I can show it to you, the pipe collapses quite dramatically. So if I make it out of straight sections with mandrel bends, and then take it down into a 2.5 inch collector instead of a 2 inch or whatever that is, I believe that will work a lot better. I'm not too worried about putting proper headers on this being right hand drive. It's a real pain, and that would be a massive project. I'd like to, once the car's up and running and I've been enjoying it, I'd like to, I've already downloaded Race Chrono Pro, and I'm about to order a 10 Hertz GPS receiver for it, and I believe I can just do some 0 to 80 km/h, which is about 48 mile an hour, just so I'm not speeding, so I can just go on the local roads where that speed is allowed, and just do some accurate 0 to 80s and see every little difference. Obviously I'm not going to have it for this because I don't have the devices yet, but any later modifications I can see what it gives me. That's cleaned up really quite well. That was about 20 minutes. And I just used a combination of a stripping disc on my 13-year-old cordless grinder, what's left of the wire wheel on my locally sourced 5-inch grinder, and just a combination of brushes on my driver with the quick release fittings. Made the job quite easy actually. So a couple of little spots that I've noticed just while I'm filming, I'll quickly tidy those up and then give it a wax and grease. I'll just paint this for now. I won't worry about the downpipe for now. I just want to have a go and see how this looks, and then I can either clean that up next if I've got time today. Yeah, it's only 3:20. I might get to both of them today. See how we go. Alright, so I've done 2 coats on the downpipe. I forgot to press record when I was cleaning that up with the wire wheel and the strip disc. That cleaned up very quickly, and I was quite happy with that. I did try to do 2 coats on the exhaust manifold. Well, sorry, I did do 2 coats, and then I waited 5 minutes, as it suggests on the can, and tried to put the clear on. I could see it was lifting the silver. You see the metal plate coming up into the, or the metallic coming up into the clear. So I did an AI search on Google, and it suggests to let it go off for 24 hours. So that's got 2 coats of paint and 1 coat of clear. So I'll let that go until this time tomorrow afternoon, about 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and I'll do the same to this. So that's just 2 coats of paint. I'm pretty happy with how it goes on. It really piles on. I had to pull the can a long way back to avoid runs. I'm not painting this bottom section here, because for now, when I put the car back together, I'll just be butt welding that pipe back to the original tailpipe or midsection. One of the first things I'd like to do to the exhaust system is to cut it off here. Once I've been enjoying the car for a while and I've got some data, performance data off Race Chrono, just with this exhaust system and the very restrictive exhaust system on the car. It goes back to almost below 1.5 inches in places, especially with these terrible bends. So I would like to replace that whole section at the rear, right to the back of the car, with 2.5 inch stainless, and just see what that gives. Just try and help the old girl breathe a bit. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you in the morning. This is my cheap bearing puller set that just arrived just now, so I put it to use straight away. That's the pilot bearing out of the crank, around with the flywheel around it for the input shaft to the gearbox. This bearing actually was working and running smoothly, but since I did the rust treatment on the flywheel, it must have got in. It's either glued the inner race to the seal, or it's gone through into the bearing. Either way, I don't want to risk it. Just for shits and giggles, I might pry a seal out of it and we can have a look and see what actually happened. But it worked really well anyway. So I flicked the 2 seals out, which have gone hard, by the way, and the bearing's still seized. So I would say the rust treatment's got in there and coated it up and bound it up. So, and it's pretty dry. So I'm glad that's being replaced. Apparently, even though I think I only ordered it on Friday or Saturday, the replacement seal's due today. Bearing, I should say, is due today. So that actually, once that's back in there, that actually, and I clean that up, I can start reassembling that, because I've got the clutch and everything here. Although, no, I've totally forgotten, I still need to replace all the seals in the gearbox. Tuesday the 16th of June. I'm on mechanical stuff today, or halfway between mechanical and painting, and I've just been having a hell of a time trying to edit these videos for separate playlists, so I'm just going to revert to chronological order for all the videos, and it will be a mixture of prep and paint as well as mechanical items, just make my life a little bit easier. So what I've been doing today, I decided just to pull apart and clean stuff that needs to be painted black, because I'm going to be using the 2K spray cans, and once they're activated, depending on the brand that I'm using, they're anywhere from 4 to 24 hours of pot life in the spray can. So earlier off camera, I stripped this complete strut assembly down. That's its partner there. I had these shipped in from down south in Thailand, because even though my original struts off the car are 51mm, the heavier struts, they have rust in around here, and they were the solid thin brake rotors. So these ones have the 22mm vented rotors, and they're also the 51mm struts. So you can join me whilst I'll pull that one apart. This one came apart quite nicely, and the bonus of this pair, the dust covers on my originals were extremely rusted and were going to require a lot of work. I found that you can buy them on Alibaba, but have to buy from memory 5 or 10 sets minimum, and it adds up to a lot of money, and whether people here in Thailand want them or not, I'm not interested in finding out. So this one only has one little bend and surface rust, so they'll also be one of the things that gets cleaned up and painted black. So you saw this one gave me a bit of trouble. Here's the culprit. I can't see, well, it looks like it might have been a little bit of rust growth there, or possibly a bit of a grab down the bottom there. I do have some extension drives for my cordless driver, and I can put two of them together and get right down, and I'll put a nylon brush down in there and give them a good clean out. Because on one of mine I actually had to drill a hole in the bottom and butcher the strut insert out. It was totally rusted in there, so I'm very grateful to have found these for the price that I got them for. So I didn't bring them out, but I've got all new hubs with bearings, just in a carton on the other side of the car. There I've got Brembo discs all the way around, which go in. It's a popular brand here. And I have got the seal kits for the calipers, and going into my goodies I've got new hoses with the original insulator on them. I don't know if these are, I don't think they're OEM, I think they're aftermarket, but thankfully they're still available at the moment. Alright, so as I said, I'm going to start cleaning up all these black items. I've got all new top hats, or whatever we call them, and new bump stops. I've got the new slippers as well. So I just need to clean up one more of these. I've already cleaned one, and then start cleaning up my struts. And then I've got a heap of bracketry off the car. Yeah, it's like the transmission exhaust mount, the alternator adjustment arms, the top arm for the air conditioning. And while I'm thinking at it, I'll have to clean up some of the power steering steel parts of the mounts. All the aluminium stuff is back on the motor already. So I'll continue on.